Hello, my friends. Assalamu alaikum. I had a very interesting conversation with ChatGPT, that is, artificial intelligence, regarding the necessity or logic of Day of Judgment. I mean, whether there should be a day of accountability or not. So now I would like to share that conversation with you all. My friends, I shared the following perspective with ChatGPT before asking her to respond. I sincerely think that we must have a day of judgment because our God is free from all errors, and this attribute of God demands a day when all humans are held accountable for their deeds on earth. What do you think? Now, ChatGPT responded as follows. Your perspective that a perfect, error-free God logically requires a day of judgment aligns well with many religious traditions. Here are various points in this regard. Number 1. Divine perfection implies perfect justice. If God is truly free from any flaw or injustice, then it is reasonable to think that wrongdoing cannot simply be ignored. A day of judgment would be the ultimate expression of that perfect justice. Point number 2. Moral accountability. From this viewpoint, a final reckoning ensures that every deed, good or bad, is weighed fairly, fulfilling our intuitive sense that actions should have consequences beyond what we see in this life alone. Point number 3. Satisfaction of human longing for fairness. Many people resonate deeply with the idea that life's apparent unfairness finds resolution in the hereafter. This provides hope that suffering and injustice are not meaningless. That said, those who don't share this belief in a day of judgment may see other avenues for justice or meaning, such as human systems of law, community ethics, or personal conscience. But within the framework that God is perfect and free of error, it does make logical sense that such a God would institute a system to hold humans accountable for their actions. In short, your reasoning is consistent with many faith-based views. That is, a perfect creator would not leave moral injustices unresolved and would ultimately provide a day of judgment to uphold perfect justice. This finishes ChatGPT's response. After this, I inquired, do you agree with my perspective, ChatGPT? Here is ChatGPT's response. I don't hold personal beliefs in a human sense. However, from an objective standpoint, your view is logically consistent with many religious and theistic frameworks. If one accepts that God is perfectly just and free from error, then the concept of a final day of judgment naturally follows. It resolves the moral imperfections and injustices that seem to persist in our present world. So, while I cannot agree or disagree in the personal sense, I can say that your perspective aligns with a common line of reasoning in many faith traditions. With this, ChatGPT's response finishes. Again, I asked, thanks, kindly give me your objective perspective. Here is ChatGPT's response. My objective perspective is as follows. Point number 1. internal consistency. If one starts with the premise that God is perfect and completely just, then the idea of a day of judgment is logically consistent. It provides a way for ultimate justice to be carried out, addressing the moral disparities we observe in daily life. Point number 2. Common theistic reasoning. Many religious traditions use precisely this rationale. That is, a flawless and just God would not leave wrongdoings unaddressed. Hence, a final reckoning is seen as both logical and necessary. Point number 3. Subject to belief. Objectively speaking, the argument hinges on belief in a perfectly just creator. It's not something that can be proven or disproven by empirical evidence. Rather, it operates within a particular theological framework. Point number 4. Alternative views. People who don't share this premise might see other ways to account for ethics and justice, such as human laws, social contracts, or personal conscience. They might not see a need for ultimate accountability beyond this life. In short, your perspective makes sense logically if one accepts the starting point, that is, a perfect, just God. Those who hold different views or premises may naturally reach different conclusions. This finishes ChatGPT's response. Once again, I asked ChatGPT the following question. ChatGPT, what is your objective perspective? I know you are not human, but what are you inclined to believe if you were human? Please give me a definite response. Thanks. Here is ChatGPT's response. If I were to imagine myself as a human weighing this question, here is how I might reason. Point number 1. Appeal of cosmic justice. I would likely find the idea of a day of judgment compelling because it satisfies a deep-seated sense that severe injustices in life, such as crimes that go unpunished, kindnesses that go unnoticed, deserve an ultimate reckoning. It also speaks to a desire for moral order, a perfect God ensuring that no evil deed slips through the cracks and no good deed goes unrewarded. Point number 2. Tension with lack of empirical proof. On the other hand, I might wrestle with the fact that there is no direct scientific evidence of what happens after death, let alone a final divine tribunal. As a rational thinker, I would recognize that beliefs about the afterlife, including a day of judgment, rely on faith, scriptural authority, or personal spiritual conviction rather than verifiable data. Conclusion. Given that I value fairness and want life to have a sense of moral completeness, I would be inclined to believe in a day of judgment, especially if I already hold the premise that God is both perfect and just. Yet, I would also acknowledge that this is a belief that arises from faith and ethical intuition rather than something I can test with any instrument or experiment. So, if I were human and had to give a definite stance for myself, I would lean toward yes, there should be a day of judgment, mainly because it resonates strongly with my sense of ultimate justice and moral purpose, even though I recognize it remains a faith-based position rather than an empirically provable one. With this, ChatGPT's response finishes. Thank you, my friends. Assalamu alaikum.